Hello and welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Johners, episode 189. We're part of the Johners podcasting network, of course, and I've got another fabulous guest. I always have excellent guests on the Wrestling with Johners podcast. I'm pleased to introduce the Crown Prince, Ender Kara. How you doing? Thank you very much for coming on the podcast with us today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's rolling, man. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very, very good. Like I say, it isn't another episode of Wrestling with Johners without having another fabulous guest. But to kick things off, Ender, I want to start asking you about your nickname, your personas. I know we had a little bit of a chat off air, but you've got two personas that you use: the Crown Prince, which is what I introduced you as, and the Turkish Assassin. So for any of my listeners or any of your fans that might be a little bit confused over the two personas, what's best to use when? Clear up that confusion right now for us, Ender.
All right, so the thing is, way back, we're talking 1-2 years ago probably, I was known as the Turkish Assassin. And then during my time in Denmark, I switched to the Crown Prince. And basically the Crown Prince is the higher to the throne and, eventually becomes king and all. And then I did win the title, like the DPW light heavyweight title down in Denmark. And basically I was supposed to debut this brand new persona, new moveset, new look, everything. But everything shut down basically because of COVID, obviously. And then eventually I went to wXw, obviously, for the stay at the apartment. And during my time over there, I proved myself worthy to be invited to the tapings over there. And then they basically asked for my stuff, like all my stuff, MVs, pictures, nicknames, logos, all that. So I sent them all my stuff. So I sent them the former gimmick that I used to do as a Turkish Assassin way back, and the current gimmick, Crown Prince. And then they were like, okay, this is pretty cool, like the Turkish Assassin thing. And by the time I went to the tapings, I had no clue what gimmick I was going to portray.
I understand.
I had no idea. And I go in there, and eventually, like an hour or something later after I arrived, they play my Titantron, and I see the Turkish Assassin logo. I'm like, cool, I guess I'm doing the Turkish Assassin again. So, and it's basically stuck since then, and I guess it's my fault and all. But yeah, that's pretty much the story about that. So basically elsewhere, outside of wXw, I'm more known as Crown Prince, but I've worked as the Turkish Assassin before as well, but I kind of left that off, but now I'm back into it.
Yeah, I suppose it kind of differentiates you, especially in wXw, having your own separate persona for that promotion, and then elsewhere, like I say, different persona, the Crown Prince. But we're going to get more into your kind of gimmicks and your career in wrestling so far in a moment, Ender. But just for anybody watching at home, anybody listening at home, we are live across YouTube, all of my Facebook channels, and of course Twitch. But over the next 45 minutes or so, I'm going to be digging deep into Ender Kara's career, how he got started in the business, bringing us right up to speed with wXw and what the rest of 2021 has to offer. But if you want to get in touch, if you want to send us any questions, if you have any comments or any questions for Ender Kara, you can do. Just send us the comment using your device or on your laptop. But in order for us to have your name displayed on screen, you need to go to streamyard.com/Facebook, and they will grant you permission or grant us permission to show us your name and your picture as part of this broadcast. Some of you may be watching may have already done that, but if not, go to streamyard.com/Facebook, and it's running across the bottom of the screen now. But first of all, Ender, like I say, we've spoken about your persona, and you want to be kind of known as the Crown Prince outside of wXw. But how would you describe your current persona, your current gimmick, or how would you like to be perceived kind of when you're in the wrestling ring character-wise?
So back to the gimmick real quick. There's a possibility in the future. I can't tell you. I can't predict the future, but I might merge those two gimmicks into one eventually.
Interesting.
That's probably like an idea I have in my head right now. But as for, did you ask about the differences between the gimmicks?
Well, potentially, yes. I mean, how would you describe your gimmicks, your characters? But starting with the Crown Prince gimmick, first of all.
So basically, the Crown Prince is a villain, a heel. And obviously, looking at my size, I'm 5'7", 170 centimeters.
Yeah.
Cage match is lying, by the way. But Yeah, so I'm usually obviously the small guy in like every match I have, and usually that always makes me the face, like automatically, since people tend to gain sympathy for the smaller guy. But
Exactly. Yeah.
but this is where this is where Stockholm syndrome comes into play. Since I'm born and raised in Stockholm, and basically Stockholm syndrome is a real life incident in real life
Yeah.
where there was a botched robbery, and during that botched robbery, the victims of the kidnapper's victims,
Yeah.
gained sympathy for the villain, so they didn't snitch on him. So basically, that's kind of what I'm trying to portray as well, which is the heel, the villain, gaining the sympathy from the audience, since I'm this small guy and all that. And it's something that is kind of out of the box because, like, the stereotypical thing is that the small guy is always the babyface. So basically, the crown prince is simply someone who, like I will look at the crowd, and when they're cheering for me, since I have a very cool moveset as well, apparently, like according to them, and basically they're cheering for me. And by that time, in my head, as the crown prince, I look at them and I go like, "You guys, everyone, I have you all in my palm right now."
You switch straight away. You fool them. You turn
Yeah.
heelish.
Yeah, basically, the character itself is a villain, and obviously the Turkish assassin is a babyface. Basically, someone's very quick on their feet. Yeah, quick on their feet, kicks and all. Guessing the assassin nickname is coming from my style while I'm working in the ring. And it's easy to chant and all that, so it's the perfect gimmick for a babyface character, basically. And it's basically just me, if that makes sense.
And that's really interesting because, I mean, judging by the names and how they sound, you would assume that the Turkish assassin would be the heel character and the crown prince would be more of a babyface character. But you've switched it, and it's very, very interesting the way you've told how the different personas kind of rest with you. But that's really, really cool. And I just want to kind of stick with wXw for a little bit because, you know, getting that opportunity with wXw is a really, really cool opportunity and a fantastic promotion to be with. One of the premier promotions, not just in Europe, but in the world, I would say. It's being featured as one of their promotions on the WWE Network as well. So you're getting a lot of exposure out there, my friends. But when did you first get the call to make your debut with wXw? Because I understand was it last December as part of the Catch Grand Prix?
Yeah, that's right. So I had been to the academy apartment like some months before that, but you know, as everything shut down and there was really nothing to do within wrestling, I kind of I was lost. You know, I didn't know what to do because I've never really taken a break from wrestling like ever since I started, and I was so desperate to actually be in a ring. So during the pandemic, I went down to Germany. Like way before everything actually shut down for real. So I went down to Germany for an entire month, lived in the apartment over there, and I was invited to the tapings. And some people don't actually know this, but you can kind of tell during the entrances. But my match against the rotation was my actual debut, because you can also see, like as I'm doing my entrance, I'm so nervous because this is the biggest match of my life, basically, because I'm brand new to this promotion. This promotion has been in my bucket list for years. And yeah, you can basically tell I'm nervous and all, but I do well and make a good impression. And then eventually, sadly, Emil Sitochi got hurt during the tapings as well at the Koch Grand Prix. And the COO came up to me and said, "Hey, Ender, do you want to wrestle?" And at that time, I was banged up. But from an experience back in the UK, maybe we can talk about that later, but I kind of had a moment of clarity and said, "I'm good to go. Like, I would love to wrestle." And he's like, "All right, I'll see you in an hour." I was like, "Yeah, you will." And then basically I substitute for Emil Sitochi against Ahura. And the release date of those tapings, obviously Catch Grand Prix was way before. Therefore, I was way more comfortable. As you can see my entrance, I was moving around, I was smiling and not smiling and just working with it, you know, not so nervous.
That makes perfect sense. Yes, but obviously, from a fan's perspective, your first match was the Grand Prix. But it's interesting
Yeah,
the way you explained that your first match was against a rotation. I'll have to
yeah,
watch that back now. But
yeah,
and your recent storyline, I don't know if it's a current storyline, but your recent storyline has been the Endakara trial series,
yeah.
which I understand was designed to help get you over a little bit more, to prove yourself against some of the more established names in wXw, and to, with the storyline, I'm guessing, of getting a permanent spot on the roster. Tell us about that, because I think you were temporarily hampered with an ankle injury. Where are we with that ankle? And I mean, it looked like a lot of fun to start off with. You were going up against some of the bigger, more established names in
Yeah.
wXw during that storyline, during that trial. But great for you to be featured so heavily in a storyline such as that, I suppose.
So basically, that opportunity right there was like, you could tell instantly that they had a lot of faith in me, considering everything I've done before WXW. Some people tend to think that I just made a good impression in front of the right people during my debut, but if you look at what happened before that, I was
Yeah.
traveling around. I was living in the UK, left my family twice. Um, Stayed there for a total of 6 months, wrestled in 6 different countries. So I've been moving around basically. So at the time when I was there and making a good impression at the academy and the tapings itself, they simply thought, okay, wow, let's trust this guy with this, and they gave me the storyline, and obviously I was really happy about it, because that, to me, it was like an approval of sorts, that okay, wow, they really want me here, because it could have been like, okay, you do these matches and then you're never coming back. Basically, I've had some of those in different promotions, but the fact that they gave me that, and the fact that I could work the people I worked during that trial series was, yeah, unbelievable experience. Obviously, sad that the injury happened. The ankle itself was actually hurt for real, but yeah, I had to go through it, and the dark match that was recently released with the rotation as well, which is my rematch from the Shotgun Silvestre special,
Yeah.
was taped 2 days after the injury.
Oh, wow.
So like, I wanted to leave on good terms because I was
Yeah.
devastated, obviously. But as that happened, and when they come out, like the creative team came up to me and said, "Hey man, like the trial series has to be canceled," I was devastated, because I said, like, in my head, I was like, I had this opportunity and I got hurt, and now it's like someone's gonna replace me, obviously, within it. But then, as it happened, I kind of developed more of a positive mindset about it, because I realized, okay, everything is connected. It's gonna work out, because everything always works out eventually, like some
100%.
way, somehow.
Oh,
It
yeah.
does.
Yeah, and that brings us nicely to our first listener question. And I mean, you've had some really tough matches in wXw so far, with the likes of Bobby Guns, Fast Time Mudu, the rotation, as we said, Robert Dreisker. But the first question comes from Anne Isaac, and I believe that this is via Instagram. During your trial series, which match was the toughest? So you could say you had a number of really tough matches and a number of really tough opponents, but was there one in particular, or maybe a couple, that really stand out as being particularly grueling for you?
It has to be the Bobby Guns match, because I was working with the injury at the time, and him twisting the ankle didn't, help me one bit. But
Right, yeah.
obviously, like, if you look at it, he's also like the top ranked, if that makes sense, like, opponent I've ever had, because at that time he was the WXW Unified World Champion too.
Right, yeah.
So I would say Bobby Guns, even though like the match itself was around 6 minutes and all. Yeah, just letting the adrenaline get me through it. That's like within the trial series, that is. But
Of
yeah,
course, of course.
that's probably the one.
Yeah, and wow, he's an amazing competitor, isn't he? And he's got a great
Oh boy,
gimmick
yeah.
and a fantastic moveset. But one thing that I've realised and come to recognise watching your matches and doing my research on you is that, as you said at the beginning of the podcast, you are generally the smaller wrestler, and you do 9 times out of 10 have to fight from underneath, and you do get thrown around quite a bit, but you come back, and your speed, your adversity, your agility around the ring is absolutely fantastic. And in fact, when I've seen some of your matches, the speed at which you hit the ropes and the speed at which you hit your opponents is lightning quick. And I don't think I've seen many wrestlers as quick as you. But my final question regarding wXw.
Yeah.
You're the second wXw superstar that I've interviewed in recent weeks. I've interviewed Tristan Archer a few weeks ago. I've actually got Emil Satochi coming on the show in July, so that'll be interesting to get a legendary wrestler, over 20 years experience there. So that'll be fantastic to interview him. But the prestige and the history of wXw, it cannot be denied, can it really? The amount of stars that company has helped to establish over the years, Ilya Dragunovs, the Walters, there's so many that have come out of wXw and gone on to kind of bigger things. But you've got an amazing crop of talent currently in wXw. The roster is absolutely stacked. But wXw, in my opinion, is producing some of the best wrestling and some of the best wrestlers in the world currently, as far as I'm concerned. And you're right there in the mix every single week. How does that make you feel to be part of such an organization with such a deep history and a track record for making superstars?
Again, man, it's... I'm so grateful, obviously, because everything in my life, I basically dedicated my life to wrestling ever since the first day I started. The ups and downs throughout the way, and this is simply also like an approval, and this is like the very definition of hard work. Getting, this is simply something I've earned, if that makes sense, because of everything, man. It's just so much that I can get into, obviously. But being a part of them, not only the wrestlers, but the crew itself, they're such a great team. It's unbelievable. I keep, every time I'm there, I keep going back up to the producers or the crew itself. I'm like, you guys are insane. I've been here and there, but nobody's doing what you're doing. And they're like, no, stop. They're like, they can't. But I get it.
But it's like WWE standards, isn't it? The standards are so high from its production and, the quality of the presentation. It's so high. And I think it's only getting better every time I switch it on, to be honest with you.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like there's old school fans who tend to criticize the current talent and all that. But if you think about it, we haven't really wrestled in front of a crowd yet. And when we do, we'll be more fired up than ever. And you will truly see that we're truly the future, every single one of us. Not only me. I'm getting everyone on this train now because everyone is so good, man. It's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. And like I say, outside of the UK, I'd say it's probably the premier wrestling organisation in all of Europe. Like I say, it's being featured on the WWE Network, so it can't be bad to have their partnership and their involvement. But I want to go right back now, Ender, and talk about your martial arts background, because I've done my research, and you did Taekwondo for a number of years, and you actually achieved black belt status, didn't you? Tell us about Taekwondo and kind of that journey with that martial arts, and I suppose eventually incorporating it into your wrestling style as well.
So I started Taekwondo in 2010 when I was 13 years old, or young, I should say. And I pretty much did it I did practice it very seriously up until 2015. And then eventually I did earn my black belt. But the background itself, when I started, it was more okay, everyone's doing football or soccer. And basically, I wanted to stand out some way. And then I started Taekwondo, one class, and I fell in love with it because the kicks and all that, because it's very kick-oriented. It's a Korean martial art. And yeah, I simply fell in love with it. And then I did spar. I was doing fighting, which is called kyorugi in Korean. And I would end up fighting on Swedish Cups, national championships, competitions all over Sweden, except for the north of Sweden, that is. But then eventually I would practice together with national team members, and I will I took it very seriously because at the time as well, my goal was to do Rio the Olympics in 2016, since Taekwondo is an Olympic sport. However, by the time, as the time went, a lot of things changed within Taekwondo. Like we're talking the rules within fighting, and it simply became it wasn't a fight anymore. It was more like ballet, or like you're standing like a flamingo and you're just trying to touch the opponent's head, because the way you get points during fighting, you gotta kick them, and you gotta hit them either in the head or on the body. And then since the rules changed, it wasn't even fun anymore. And then I was in high school at that time, and I had to focus on that, obviously. But like I would blame the rules changing and the uniforms changing and all that, because you're not even wearing your dobok anymore, like your actual uniform anymore. It's totally different now. And that's simply, the passion wasn't really there anymore. However, I'm talking more about the competitive side of Taekwondo. If we're talking like going to the dojo and having a training session, like whenever there's an opportunity, I will always go, since I still love it, obviously.
Do you still practice it? Do you still practice your martial arts and your Taekwondo?
I did it in Sweden before I moved to Germany.
Right, okay.
Like whenever the opportunity presented itself, that is. But as for here, I'm currently looking at starting some type of martial art, at least like kickboxing or so. I haven't found any Taekwondo training halls here, sadly. But yeah, like how I transitioned that into my wrestling, not a lot of people have the black belts. Like if we're looking at who it can be, like we're talking Mike Bailey, Jana Kai, I think from the States, she has a black belt too. But it's not a lot of people. So therefore I'm like, it wouldn't make sense if I didn't use that as my advantage. And therefore I'm doing that right now, especially during my time in wXw. Like before that, I didn't really focus too much on it. Like I had some kicks here and there, but it's really not that kick oriented within my style.
Yeah, no, that's great. And speaking of your wrestling style, that brings us to another fan question, or another listener question via Instagram. We got JustRob03. What got you into wrestling? So let's talk about your wrestling fandom first of all. Was you a wrestling fan before taking it up as a profession, and then how did that lead into actually starting your training to become a pro wrestler? So your fandom into your training, I suppose.
Oof, this is a big subject. Okay, so I first saw wrestling for the first time ever. I didn't see a match or anything. I saw a segment, and it was Randy Orton and Bob Orton in the ring, and then out of nowhere, The Undertaker appeared, and that got me hooked.
I remember that feud very well. Yes.
Yeah, and I was 8 years old at the time. And then obviously I did my research on it, and then I found Rey Mysterio, I found Eddie Guerrero, and then I would watch Randy Orton as well, because I kind of liked him, even though he was like the biggest heel at that time. But yeah, like I fell in love with it, and I would watch it constantly, and I would surround myself with people who had a similar interest, which is something that is very necessary even now. But as time went on, I always had it in the back of my mind, like, oh, imagine if I was a wrestler, because at the time I did trampoline wrestling with friends and like all of that, backyard wrestling and all of that. But obviously, like in Sweden, it's not that big at all, so the chances were very slim until I discovered a promotion called Stockholm Wrestling, which is pretty much where I started. And they were founded in 2010. So I kind of had that in the back of my head, like throughout life, basically. And then eventually I graduated high school, and I worked basically for free as a sales executive. And then eventually I was just like, growing up, I was this really sad boy, like young and damaged, sadly, but not now, but at the time I was. And then like I finished high school, I graduated, and then I started this job, and I was miserable. I was like, fuck, is this really it? Like, is this it? And then eventually,
this is real life, the real world. Yeah, it's not fun.
Right. And then like I remember one time I just had a moment of clarity, and I was like, why the fuck am I thinking like a fucking peasant? Why don't I just do whatever the fuck I want? And then I remember, you know what? If this doesn't work out, this job right here, I'm just going to start wrestling, and I'm not going to give a fuck about what anybody has to say. Not even my family. No one's going to have anything to do with it, because I was desperate for happiness. I wanted happiness, because otherwise, like, I was like, what am I doing here? Like, what's my purpose, And like at that time, since I was like very young and trying to find myself constantly, I just decided to do it. And the week after I had this moment of clarity, the company I was working for went bankrupt. So basically, the contract we had were ripped apart. And I was like, okay, that's the sign. I'm out of here. This is what we're doing now. So
Absolutely. No looking back.
so I contacted Stockholm Wrestling at the time, and a good friend of mine who's still my friend to this day replied, and he's like, basically, I told him, it's a long story. I'm a shrimp, like I'm small and all. However, I want to chase a dream I never had the courage to chase before. May I come and train? And then he was like, oh yeah, this is, wrestling hurts, right? And and then eventually I did get an invitation to train with them. And at the time when I went there, like no family members knew anything about it. And I remember that was the first time ever in my life I actually saw a wrestling ring with my own eyes, like for the first time ever. And I just knew that was it. I had to do it. And this was on the 31st of October, 2016. I still remember to this day. And that facility itself has a very special place in my heart as well. However, the ring there and, training and me picking up things really quickly, since I already had been studying, basically, especially Rey Mysterio, that is, since I'm the smaller guy and all. Like, I would take bumps and all. The first time I actually took a bump, I was by myself, and I just wanted to bump in the ring by myself without anybody watching me or anything, and I whiplash, and I was like, all right, we'll just wait for everyone else. But yeah, that's basically it. And then I was training. Like I remember I didn't miss any training whatsoever, and I just simply dedicated my life to it. Like, and then eventually, as time went on, obviously, like I would do like everything I did in my life was related to wrestling. Everything. I had 3 jobs in Sweden at the same time, 3 part-time jobs, because I wanted to save up and invest in myself for wrestling. So much stuff. But yeah, I can go on and on and on. So please take over.
No. And so I was going to say, I mean, coming from a martial arts background, you hear so many stories of people within the martial arts business, former MMA stars or maybe Olympic wrestling stars, going into pro wrestling and finding it quite a natural transition. Having that background in a combat sport, I know pro wrestling is completely different, but similar in many ways also. Did you find that transition easy, or were there elements that you found hard at the same time?
I found it easy in terms of the discipline side of it, because I was already disciplined at that time. However, I was back in the day, I was used to like kicking people's chests, and it was kind of hard to transition to like, okay, you want to hit him, but not really, like don't kill him, don't knock him out. So that was a weird transition for me. However, like as for the discipline and as for the athletic background itself, with the flexibility and the speed and the explosive, basically
explosiveness, the speed.
Pretty much, the speed and everything, like it all came together in one. And I found it really easy since I already pretty much knew what I was getting myself into.
That's really cool. And we mentioned that you kind of started your wrestling career in Sweden. I think in the first 12 months or so, you wrestled pretty much exclusively in Sweden. You might have done the odd match here and there in Denmark, but since then, I mean, you've wrestled, let's say, across Europe, the UK, Sweden, Denmark, Belgium, Finland, and now more recently, Germany, of course. Now, there's clearly advantages to working in different countries with different talent and different styles, Ender, but what were some of the key learning points for you working in so many different countries, learning from the different talent that you were working against, and maybe even the different fans from one country to another? Tell us about some of the key things that you picked up traveling from country to country.
Every match was a proper training session, let's say that. In my head, like you had to invest in yourself, since you can't make a living over there in Sweden, obviously. It's not big. It's very political, let's say.
Yeah.
So just being around and not, if you truly want something and you're worth it, just go grab it, really.
Yeah.
Because if you're just staying around and sticking around, you'll end up like sitting in the boat with all the others, you know. And yeah, every single country, especially the one match I had in Finland. I've only had one match in Finland, from what I can remember, and that was probably one of the best moments of my entire, not only career but life as well.
Really?
Because that was more of an approval that I had made the right choice of going my own way and leaving Sweden, and betting on myself, that is. But yeah, like I said, like every single match anywhere was a proper training sessions, because if you look at the majority of the time I was in Sweden, I was mostly self-trained. There were people who would come up and show up here and there. However, like if you look at the majority of the time, I was there like pretty much all day and every day, because I couldn't believe how people couldn't take advantage of such an amazing facility. We had the ring, we had the gym equipment, we have a Ninja Warrior course. Like we had everything that someone could dream of, you know.
Yeah.
Some people, like I know some people have like families and such and all that, but like I used to say this a lot, but you can pretend that you care, but you can't pretend that you're there.
Yeah.
So
100%.
There was a lot of those, let's say that. But I don't want to get into.
No. I was just intrigued that. I mean, did you find that the fans were different from country to country? I know that I've seen wrestling in America and the UK, but I know that the UK fans, the fans can be very respectful, but at the same time quite noisy. Maybe there's an element of the football fan culture there as well, with the chanting and the songs possibly. But did you notice a switch in fans as you kind of traveled across Europe?
Absolutely. Especially if you're wrestling in Denmark and you're born and raised in Stockholm, or you're from Stockholm, you're getting booed nonetheless.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
You're the automatic heel.
Yeah, there's no chance in hell they're going to cheer you. Or to be fair, there is, if you do cool moves and all, but most of the fans, especially in the Nordic region, they're very uneducated within wrestling. It's more like they get drunk and they cheer for people who get beat up, basically. That's pretty much it. They don't really have, like,
they just want to see a fight. They just want to see a scrap.
yeah, pretty much. That's it. And like maybe 5% in the crowd, like in the front row, they would know like Hulk Hogan, or everyone would know Hulk Hogan, obviously, but some people would actually be kind of educated within it. But time in the UK, obviously, as you mentioned, the football chants and them being loud, they could be respectful, obviously, but them being loud, that was something that I picked up on. Finland is a really good crowd, man. Like they're so underrated. It's unbelievable. But they're a really, really good crowd. Great atmosphere, great working environment. Like from my experience, I'm not saying that's the way it is. Maybe a Finnish person will say otherwise, but that's from my experience. Everything I say over here is from my personal experience. I'm not saying anything. It's not it's not true. Everything I say.
Yeah, but regarding the UK fans, I mean, they're very knowledgeable. They know their stuff. They know their shit about the wrestlers. They do their research before they sit down. And the UK fans are very, very knowledgeable. But you mentioned Denmark. Now I know that you are currently, and you mentioned this at the top of the show, the DPW light heavyweight champion over in the Danish company Danks Pro Wrestling.
Yep.
Give us your feelings on firstly winning that title. I believe it's your first and only title at the moment, and I'm sure one of many to come in your kind of long career, I'm sure. But give us your feelings on being the champion, because I think you won that in one of your last matches before lockdown, and I don't think you've been able to defend it just yet. So how does that kind of feel with you being a long reigning champion but not having defended it yet?
Devastating. I tend to stay away from the whole, I've been champion for this amount of days. It's actually embarrassing. I'm more of a guy who will count the defenses and not the days, because if you look at what happened, everything basically shut down right after I won it, and I couldn't introduce this character, or I couldn't travel around, because I had a lot of, like, my plan was to travel all over. Like I was determined to go to Russia, for an example, or like basically everywhere. I would take this title because I had promised, like in the promo back in the day, that I was going to make this one of the most prestigious title in the Nordic region. That was something that I truly believed I could do. But as for winning the title itself at that time, it was also like one of those approvals, because that's also the first title I've ever laid eyes on. And like seen with my own eyes, I believe. And that was during a camp down in Denmark, and I saw it, and I was like, I'm gonna win that one day. And then that being my first title is pretty cool, obviously. But like I said, I've said this before in different podcasts and interviews and all that, or even in social media. That's far away from like that's just a stepping stone. Like far from done, far from it.
100%, 100%. But we look forward to seeing you defend that title soon, hopefully. But for anybody that follows you on social media, in particular Instagram, they would see a photo of you in front of the New Japan Pro Wrestling logo. Now, I understand that was when you was invited to train over in the LA dojo. Tell us about that, because you got the opportunity to train with New Japan legend Katsuri Shibata, didn't you? Tell us about that, because that is a once in a lifetime opportunity, and especially to train with such a legend, it must have been a mind blowing experience for you.
Absolutely. Like if you look at where I come from and what I've done, like in order to have everything I have today, that itself is that's thought of me being in America, in Los Angeles, is crazy. It's unbelievable, because I was raised in the suburbs of Stockholm, like basically in the ghetto, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And for me to be there, it's just, to this day, I would say that's the most memorable and the best moment of not only my career again, but my life.
How long were you out there for?
I was just there for 6 days in total. We were training for 3 days, and then 3 days I was just in downtown LA soaking it all in. But the opportunity itself, when it presented itself, you can't say no to that.
Oh no, 100%.
This was in 2018, I believe, in the fall, and the reason to why that is the best experience of my life is because when I was there at the time, it truly felt like I was in Japan. And everybody who knows me from before, they know my ultimate goal in wrestling and in life is to be wrestling in Japan.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my next question, but you've already answered it. So that's obviously on your bucket list of things to do, is to eventually wrestle over in Japan. And they've got so many amazing promotions out there that would appreciate a character and an athlete such as yourself. But I want to talk to you about your time in the UK then, because we briefly touched on it earlier on. And because I believe that you first wrestled over in the UK for Battle Pro in London in a scramble match, December 2018. And that was a great way to make your name in front of a brand new audience. And you actually went over in that Scrabble match in your debut. So a great way to make your UK debut. You must have been elated with how that all panned out.
Absolutely. Again, at the time, I remember how I was feeling at the time, because I was just this misunderstood kid in Stockholm. And the fact that I was, booked over there and went over and all that, I was also like, okay, maybe I'm not wrong after all. Maybe I do, like, everything I feel about myself, maybe it is true, because maybe I'm just one step ahead of everyone. And to this day, like, I would, look back and then I'm like, wow, I am so glad I didn't listen to any one of them.
Yeah, you followed your own path and you did what was right for you. But that was in 2018, and then 2019 we saw a whole lot more of you over here in the UK. Kamikaze Pro Live, Evolution Wrestling, LDN, and one or two more up and down the country. But you had some amazing matches during that year. But your match in particular with Kay Jutler was a very, very competitive match. And that was on a Kamikaze Pro card, wasn't it?
Yes.
It was very, very physical. It was at breakneck speed. A match definitely worth watching. I think it's available to watch on YouTube as well, or bits of it. You definitely gave a fantastic account of yourself as well. I thought that you gave as good as you got in that. Gave as good as you got. But you also had a lot of respect from the Kamikaze Pro fans afterwards as well. And despite the fact you were on the losing end, they were all chanting your name for minutes after the match. Endakara, Endakara. That must have made you feel amazing, even on the losing end in that incredible match.
Even when I lose, I win.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Always. Even when I lose, I win. Because if you look at it, I either win or I learn all the time. So, also like getting the experience itself that was, I believe, my main roster debut as well. And
Yes.
like I always knew that I was worthy of being there. However, you can't just go up to them and be like, "Oh yeah, I want to be on the main show." I gotta prove myself first, and that's exactly what I did. And the reception obviously was incredible. Really, really great crowd. And I remember, I didn't even hear them chanting, "Please bring him back" and all that. Um, because people, like at the time, people also thought I had a broken neck because of the way I bump on the German suplexes, because I
Those
landed right on my neck.
suplexes were, wow, they were painful to watch.
They were painful to take too.
I'm sure, 100%.
But yeah,
That,
unbelievable.
that was a great match. And what are some of your other memories or favourite matches or moments from 2019 when you kind of came back to the UK them times?
I'd say, man, considering the circumstances, I really enjoyed working with the O.J.M.O back
Yeah.
in Seoul Pro Wrestling. Like, if you look at what I did in order to, begin like this journey in the UK, I moved to the UK on, I believe, 2 or 3 weeks' notice. I just decided to move, and I didn't have a return date whatsoever. I had a friend over there at the time called, or his name is Niva. He's currently back in New Zealand, and
Oh, I don't either. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and basically I was with them, him and his girlfriend at the time, including another Kiwi. But yeah, and then obviously I had met O.J.M.O from before, because the first time I ever went to the UK was for a seminar, and I met him over there, and we kind of recognized that, okay, wow, we have passion for this. And
Mm.
at the time I was like, that first experience, I knew that, okay, I gotta surround myself with like-minded people, because the experience over there, like I had a speech and everything after the seminar itself, like just thanking everybody, because I wasn't used to that experience, because back in Sweden, like I said, it's just political and very negative, sadly, from my experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I knew I was going to be back, and when I was back, and the fact I could share the ring with him at the time was pretty cool. But yeah, given the circumstances, like considering how much time we had to even talk, basically, we still made it work and all. But I feel like that was a creative match, and I would truly love to see how the current Undercard would go up against him today.
That would be an awesome match that many people would pay their good money to buy a ticket for. And I'm sure the match you had with O.J.M.O before was fantastic, but give us a 2021 or a 2022 match, and that would be absolutely fantastic. But we've got some more fan questions via Instagram. Back to Just Rob 03. He sent us another one. Where do you get your gear from? So your gear's pretty cool, quite eye-catching. Do you go to the same makers, the same guy every time, or do you make it yourself? Some wrestlers do.
This is kind of a funny story, I would say. If you're referring to my first, like, I have 4 different attires at this time. The 5th one is currently in the works. It's true. But the first one, oh god, this is funny. It's actually from Wish. It's a €10 leather pants from Wish. That was my first ever gear, because I was broke. Like, I was broke. And I had an opportunity to make my debut, and I was like, all right, we got to find something. And I remember being really inspired by Kenny Omega at the G1, and I was like, all right, leather pants it is, like baggy leather pants kind of. So that was my first ever gear, and I even used it back in the UK for.
I think everybody's first gear is not particularly fantastic. It's only uphill from there, and it gets better from there.
Right. Yeah. Like, you shouldn't invest tons of money in the start anyways, but
no.
€10 or 10 quid or 9 quid ish, I would say that was. And then eventually my second attire was from Elucha. And yeah, that was also like, at the time, like, okay, I finally have proper gear. And then I kind of tried to spice it up a bit with the gloves and all. That's my third attire, but that one to shit.
Yeah.
And now my 4th gear is from Airhead Diva back in the Netherlands. So a woman she's making those, and she has made gear for people such as Will Ospreay or Zach Gibson even. The list goes on and on.
So you're getting some good stuff there, definitely.
Oh yeah, that's quality. And I know that my gear that is currently being worked on is gonna be people are gonna be looking sideways for that one.
Yeah. Okay, another question from Just Robo3 again. Where would you like to wrestle? So, would it be countries you haven't visited or worked in before, any particular tournaments or maybe promotions? Have you got your eye set on a particular promotion or any countries that you haven't been to yet?
Oh yeah, I would love to wrestle for OTT. And like I want to wrestle in Spain. Like basically I want to be pretty much everywhere, just want to, do what I do. But as for, I believe there was tournaments in there as well. Like my current goal is to, like, it's a goal and all, but I know for a fact that I will work for it and I will eventually earn it. But I would really, really want to do the 16 karat gold tournament, and I want to represent Scandinavia or Turkey even, or just simply be a part of it and showcase Enterkara. And then obviously there's another one which is the best of Super Juniors in Japan. That's a no-brainer, obviously. That one I would love to be a part of.
Progress over here in the UK have the next Prospect tournament. And, for wrestlers of your, you've been in the business 4 or 5 years, that would be a great tournament to get your name out there on a bigger stage. Of course, Progress is another WWE affiliated company, but so many awesome promotions and tournaments out there. But yes, that would be great. So the next question from Just Rob03 again, your top 3 dream matches then. And from any promotion, I'm guessing realistic dream matches, that could potentially happen in your career.
That's a loaded question. That's a big one.
It's a great question.
I have so many. Yeah, it's a great question. The names that come on top of my head first one is Kenta.
Yeah.
Second one would probably be Ilya Dragunov.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that would be a hard-hitting match between you two for sure.
Absolutely. Like I have, and then probably the third one. Maybe Taiji Ishimori, or actually someone from Noah even. I would love to share the ring with Kiyomiya Kaito, probably. Yeah. The list goes on and on. There's so many.
I'm sure if I was to ask you the same question tomorrow, it would probably be a different list. Like I say, it could be a whole a collection of wrestlers that you'd like to face. But I think going back to one of your previous answers, you want to wrestle everywhere and you want to wrestle everybody by the sounds of it. But that brings us to the end of the listener questions. What are your goals for the rest of 2021, maybe going into 2022? I mean, you're obviously a part of the roster for wXw. The only way is up, surely, with wXw, and obviously you're a featured performer there. What heights would you like to see yourself reach in wXw?
In wXw, man, obviously, like if you're not there to be the champion, why are you there? So being a champion in wXw is definitely on top of my list. 16 karat gold, like I said before. But yeah, that's in Germany, that is. But as for like my other goals, that would be obviously in Japan. Some people would think I would sign with NXT UK or something. I'm not saying I'm perfect, I'm good enough or anything. I don't know. But like my personal view of it, as much as a bittersweet feeling that would be to be like, yeah, fuck you all for saying all those stuff and treating me the way you treated back in Sweden. Like as much as that would be a great feeling, I'm at the end of the day, I'm not doing this for anybody else than me, So my own happiness is my priority, and my happiness would be in Japan 100%. And I am looking at New Japan Pro Wrestling. I'm looking at Pro Wrestling Noah. I'm looking at All Japan Pro Wrestling. You name it, my happiness is my priority. And I'm not saying NXT UK is bad or anything. I have friends over there and I watch my friends perform and I see them kill it. But for me, WWE itself, like there were times where I was looking at or listening to podcasts such as Moxley on Talk is Jericho or Punk and Cabana, like, and the things they were mentioning within those podcasts, like I know this is stupid, but I could relate to so much, and I don't want to feel that ever again. Therefore, I don't really have an interest in NXT UK or WWE as for now.
WWE is not the be all and end all, and now there's so many amazing promotions out there. I mean, you're working for wXw. That's a fantastic promotion, and we've mentioned many others during the course of this last 50 minutes or so. But WWE is not the kind of be all and end all. It's not the kind of the end point for everybody nowadays, and there's money to be earned all over the world for many promotions. But it's been amazing speaking to you over the last 50 minutes. But before we let you go, an opportunity for any of my listeners or viewers who want to reach out to you, learn more about the Crown Prince. Where can they reach out to you on social media, my friend? I know you're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, but where can they find you?
Yeah, at Enderkara PW on Instagram, Twitter, and also Facebook. But just simply type in Enderkara. Add me. Don't be shy. Please have a look at my merch store at SL Wrestling, and perhaps even buy a shirt. I have good-looking shirts. Send me a picture, and I will retweet it for you. But yeah, like I'm not much of a social media guy overall, but I try.
Sure.
But I'm lurking in the dark and I'm watching everything basically. So.
That's absolutely fantastic. But I want to thank you for your time today, and thank you for being a fantastic guest. And I know from what I've seen of you and speaking to you today, you've got a very, very bright future, and you're doing great things. So keep up the good work, my friend.
Thank you. I will.
Take care.